This is the ROSWHEEL Tour front rack. It's a lightweight aluminium rack with a bow design for extra structural stability. Each side can take a maximum of 7 kilograms of weight. It can be mounted to bikes with disc brakes, such as this one, or without disc brakes. And it can also be mounted to front forks that either have a mid-fork mount or don't, with an adapter. So take your 5mm hex wrench and 2 M6 bolts, and we're going to put the rack together with these. Take one of the side parts of your rack and the bow, and position the bow over one of the spigots here and the small nubbin at the top, so it fits together like this. Take one of your M6 bolts and screw it into fix the 2 rack pieces together. Don't over tighten. Next, take the other side of the rack and place it into the spigot, and with the nubbin locating in the hole at the top there. And you can now screw your other M6 into this hole. This is how the rack should look when assembled together. Next, we'll need our wide M5 washers, 2 adapting plates, M5 nuts, 4 of them, 4 12mm long M5 screws, spanner, and our 4mm hex wrench. Place your adapter plate underneath one side of the rack and place 1 bolt into either the top or the bottom slot and through the adapter plate. It doesn't matter at this moment because we can alter it when it's on the bike. Take your M5 bolt and fix it loosely underneath. Take your 4mm Allen wrench and spanner and gently tighten this bolt a little more, just so that we can feel the lock of the thread lock on the bolt. Take another M5 bolt, do the same thing. You can either position it in the lower one or the upper one. Like I said before, you will alter this when it's on your bike. I'll put it in the upper one for now. Now we've fixed on both of our mounting adapters, the top and at the other side, and they are still adaptable and movable so that when we put it on the bike we have the ability to position it how we need. Next, we need to check the position of the different parts according to our bike. Here we have some fork mounts, so we can position the top holes over this fork mount. And then when we look down here, we can see where, in relation to these 2 bosses here, we can put this triangle. So in this instance, it looks like we're going to have to put this bolt down here. But for now, we can just bolt in this top hole on both sides and fix the rack generally into position. We've finished fixing the top mounts of the rack to the fork bosses. There is another way to fix the rack in this position if your fork doesn't have these mounting bosses. Now we need to line up the lower hole of the adapting plate to the boss on the fork. However, you can see that there's a gap here, so we have 2 sizes of washer that will fill that gap depending on your setup. We have 2 short and 2 long spacers. So for this fork and rack setup, I can use the shorter spacer. So we take a longer screw and this shorter spacer, and we can move the adapting plate into position, put the spacer in between the holes and the screw through the spacer and into our hole in the fork, and now we can tighten. Now you can tighten these two screws. Remember not to over tighten. About 5 Newton meters of torque is perfect. So to mount the front rack to a bike with no mid-fork mounts, you can use this kit. We have your 4mm hex wrench, spanner, a couple of M5 bolts, washers, nuts, and then 3 options of these steel bands to go around the fork, and 2 rubber protective pieces to protect your fork. We're going to use the 28mm diameter steel band, and you first place the black rubber part into the band with the full face on the inside. So we've worked it around so that both holes are showing. Take your steel band with the rubber protector, unbend it a little, place it around the fork, push it together, and place your rack in position over the hole. Take your bolt, position it through the hole, through the other side, and take your nut and fix it securely in position. Now tighten with your spanner on one side, and using these steel bands and rubber protectors, you can fit the front rack onto a bike with no mid-fork mounts.